And I think that ties into something that Craig, Sierra, who I'm not quite sure how to say your name, was saying, which is that to some extent, some of the ways that we're thinking about things in this war have become obsolete. One of the things that's really impressed me has been the degree of integration of things like firing control and lock-on systems that the Russians seem to have. And I know that they're not the only ones who have them. The Challenger tanks have networked lock-on systems also. But you're sending in 10 Challenger tanks that can maybe integrate their lock-on systems. But if you're up against the same sorts of things where Russia's managed to accomplish that with many more tanks and artillery and so forth, it may not be that tanks are the wrong answer. It may be that our approach to tanks may be the wrong answer. That there may be that we may be completely missing some big pieces there.
I think that the tank has a long future because you're always going to need a war tractor. You're always going to need a tractor that does tractor work. Because that's what work is. That's what war is. It's obviously hard work, right? You look at it. It's just dudes that are using tools that it's unfortunate that the tools are not for agricultural reasons. It's for the destruction of other people. But it's still a lot of hard work, and you're gonna need tools that accomplish the job. You're gonna need a thing that does. Okay, let's say the drone of the future is not the drone of the future. You're gonna need something that does that job. Let's say, for example, the tank of the future looks different. You're still going to have something that plays the role of a war tractor. You're gonna need it. You're not gonna get rid of that completely. So there's gonna be a future for that. I think for as long as there's gonna be wars fought on land, you're gonna have a need for it.
In 1984,
changed, but
in 84, the U.S. military designed a 40-ton tank and a 20-ton IFV on exactly the same armor track platform. It was an all-electric design, which I think is still very practical and intelligent thing to do because you can use any fuel type. You swap in a generator for whatever fuel is available, and then you go as far as you want. So they've been thinking about this, but I think in terms of tractors, interesting word, most tanks were produced in tractor factories in World War II, I think. Maybe just the sheer expense and difficulty of having specialized military hardware is the problem. Maybe you'd be better off designing a general purpose tractor platform and building the best possible IFV or tank you could on top of it. Then they could be commercially cheaply produced in vast numbers. Like the thing that Dan was prowling around Siberia on. People are using that for camping right now, but it's a military cargo carrier. What if you had 1 million of those in your country? Right? Then you could commandeer civilian ones and people would know how to use them. Like it would be more powerful than having a much smaller number of highly specialized pieces of equipment. So,
well,
I mean, look, the main thing.
Isn't that what the T-72 is and all this stuff where the Russians really, really treat it like a platform. That's just one of Khan's biggest complaints where he's like, hey, we're getting rid of these old tanks that we have. They're completely unsalvageable now. Meanwhile, what are the Russians doing? Well, they had so many T-72 holes. They're like, what can we do with these? They're turning them into T-14 armadas. They're using them as,
I mean, if you think about it, the tanks that Mehdi started out fighting against when he had the M60A3 before our tanks are gone. The tanks that guys my dad's age would have fought against in Russia. Those, the American version's gone, but the Russians literally still have the T-62, the T-72, the T-80, T-90, T-64. I mean, everything that, they designed to fight us 30 years ago or 40 years ago is still can be used, whereas everything we have that we built 30 years ago is pretty much gone, rusted, unrecoverable. I mean, you could cut it up and melt it down into new tanks, but that's about it. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I know they don't have everything saved, but the idea is that, I mean, like the main gun ammo. They've been making 125 ammo since 1962. And people act like they're going to run out. And that covers every single tank up to the T-14.
Yeah.
And one thing that it seems like in the West we forget is the more shit you can throw in the general direction of the enemy, the better. Even better if that shit is heavier. So getting rid of old vehicles doesn't make sense. Because that's more shit you can throw at the enemy. Yeah, it requires maintenance, it requires maybe half life repair, it requires changing the hull, but that's more shit
Well,
you can have.
you can modify them into other platforms too, like the Russians did with the Terminators and stuff like that. I mean, you could use M60 hulls and mount, air defense pods on them, or like like the ITV tow launchers, stuff like that. I mean, that's what the Russians are doing. They're using a T-62. It's like, yeah, but they're putting something else on it. I mean, look at
And
some
the
of the
thing is-
MPLBs that are driving around with the freaking, looks like gray naval guns mounted to them. Because, I mean,
Yeah,
And the
They're
thing is
huge.
that
they got those 4-shot auto mortars strapped to the back of MTLBs. I've
I
seen
wanna
them
go after you, Manny.
120. They got 120 millimeter mortars. I've seen them, in a pickup or in one of those army trucks, and they put like a foot of dirt in there. Then they set the mortar base plate into a tire, strap it down, and they just drive. They got a few cases of ammo in there, and they just drive around, stop, make a couple adjustments, fire off 4 or 5 rounds, take off. I mean,
yeah.
they've got massive amounts of firepower available to them from, look how they use the AGS. I was watching videos today of Ukrainians hiding in the trench, and you could hear in the distance, pop, 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 pop. And then a few seconds later, you could hear them going off around them. And it's like, that's, it's not very accurate, but it suppresses them. And it's just crazy how many ways they've taken, systems, like it would suck to have to carry 120 millimeter around, but hey, you stole a truck, now you can strap it in the back, and you and the boys ain't got to walk. You can carry some extra ammo and still do your job. So I saw a 113 that was captured by Russians, and they used it as, it was 5 guys that ran drones, and it was parked. They had pulled a little lean-to up, put a big screen TV on the side. Guy was sitting on a little fold-out chair, looking at the drone, and they have the antennas and stuff set up on the nice flat top of the M113. I mean, it's like, that's not issue. They'll probably use it until it breaks down, but I mean, they're very adept at just using whatever's available to make it into something. I mean, fuck walking when you can ride, even if it's only for another 6 months.